Did you know that drinking on Google could be one of the best investments for any purpose-driven business to make a bigger positive impact? Well, this and so much more is what you will learn in today's episode together with Michael Ofei from KindMark. He will share with you how you can use your content on Google to reach people where they're looking for it.
What still blows my mind is that people are going to Google beyond just looking for their local bakery or cafe, beyond just trying to prove their spouse wrong in an argument. And they're still trying to find information, products and services. And I think that's really powerful because if you can meet them exactly where they are,
you will learn how monetization that is aligned with your purpose can help you make an even bigger impact.
When you try and start a purpose-driven business, at every term, you're kind of having to question your ethos when you decide you want to monetize. And then there's a friction between your purpose and what you're trying to do and the authenticity around that versus this desire to monetize, because if you can monetize, you can then invest more resources and then hopefully have a greater impact.
And you will learn why his agency only works with purpose-driven businesses.
We work with purpose-driven businesses. The first thing is that profit is important, but your values are just as important. Doesn't matter what your cause is, it's just that you're leading with that. That's the first thing, because there's lots of businesses out there. There's lots of people that I know that want help or whatever, but it just might not be the best fit energetically from that standpoint. So I am very upfront about that.
Hello and welcome to the Impactful Ninja Show. I'm your host, Dennis Kamprad, and today we are joined by Michael Ofei from KindMark. Michael, welcome.
Hi, Dennis. Thank you so much for having me and to be part of the Impactful Ninja community.
My pleasure. Happy having you here as well. Now, before we go and tell your journey, give us a brief overview. What is KindMark and what are you doing there?
Yeah, look, there's some really interesting research that came out by Google itself a few years ago. So they surveyed 14,000 people and they found out about 50% of people still discover brands through Google search. Right. So, what we try to do is help purpose-driven brands in sustainability, the cruelty-free space, humanitarian, environmentalism, get discovered on Google through SEO, which is called search engine optimization. So that's what we do.
Beautiful. I love it. Now let's take a step back. Before we going deeper into your work with KindMark as well. What did you do beforehand?
Oh, I've done many things. I'm in my mid-30s now, but to keep it really concise, the last day job I had was a manager at an Apple store in Canberra, Australia. Mm-hmm. And so that's when my entrepreneurial journey started on the side. When I started the minimalistvegan.com with my wife, which was a lifestyle brand and website, kind of similar to Impactful Ninja, where we covered a lot of topics around minimalism, veganism, sustainable living, really from a place of passion, not from a place of commerce or capitalism. But it got a lot of momentum as we put out content consistently. And this started to build up a bit of an audience on the side. And from there, this was back in 2015. In 2016, with this audience, we decided to launch an e-commerce store called Fairlings, where we'd sell ethical and sustainable products to our local market here. And I'll come back to that later to explain how I got into KindMark. But a long story short, those two projects were running simultaneously as a side hustle to our day jobs. And then in 2019, we built up those businesses to a large enough size where we were able to comfortably leave our day jobs and pursue these endeavors full time, which then led us to selling one of the websites, starting another one, and then getting into KindMark.
Nice. You already mentioned that you were working at an Apple store as a manager, if I remember correctly. You started your website on the side. Was there any kind of specific starting point to get you started with a vegan website? Or was there any kind of challenge that you saw? Or was it just about like sharing the love and helping people out?
Oh yeah, look, we're quite intentional about, back then, now it's so easy to start a website with all these templates and you don't need any coding experience. But in 2015, we went out and worked with a professional designer to get the website designed, because we wanted a particular aesthetic. And my wife is a professional photographer. And so she really wanted to get into recipe development and food photography. So out of the gates, she had those skills and it looked really professional. And, but we reached out to, I think, about 1,000 bloggers and influencers before we launched. Just to get on the radar and make those connections. So, and everyone was really keen. They saw our coming soon page and they said, hey, when you launch, please reach out to us. We'd love to share it. So we were able to actually leverage those relationships to come out the gates very strong. We launched with about 10 articles, a mix of lifestyle content and recipes. But we offered a free cookbook, to sign up to join the email list at the time. And again, 2015, a very different internet to what it is today. And, but because we had that audience from day one, it was very motivating to keep creating and creating those recipes and those articles. And that's what really carried on the momentum. We didn't know too much about SEO back then, but we were just creating from the heart. We were creating content, answering the questions that we wish we had answered, or sharing our honest experiences on this journey of trying to live an impactful life that can be quite challenging. And, it started to got picked up by news outlets, by Google, and it just slowly started to build from there.
Now, you mentioned a really interesting point there also with kind of answering the questions you wish you had answered before, because that's also how basically we started. Like so many questions that you see, like, why is there no answer? Why is there like a bad answer? Why is that so wrong? There should be something better. It's kind of a little for like super connected backstory. You also mentioned that you started with 10 articles. How did you decide on the first ones to write about?
Yeah, well, we just wanted to have a good mix between, what's our vegan origin story? What are some decluttering tips around minimalism? And then a variety of articles, recipes, in addition to like some sustainable living, zero waste stuff as well. So we just wanted to make sure, we really thought of it as like an online magazine. And so as an editorial hat on, it's like, okay, what type of variety do we want? And we just wanted to tick all those boxes from variety. And because we had reached out to so many people, we kind of felt a bit of pressure to show, hey, like this is what you can expect, and this is the level. So that really created that accountability and momentum.
Nice. So basically you started with a bang. You had like a nice, well, in the industry called lead magnet, like something good to offer for people to sign up to email lists. You reached out to a lot of influencers. You had like these 10 articles ready. They received some good feedback. How did you go along from there? It was like back in 2015.
Yeah, that's right.
Like the website develop and then the e-commerce stop as well?
Yeah, so the website, once we installed our analytics and started to track things, I think in its first year, it got around, in the first couple of months, I think it reached 10,000 unique visitors, which was really mind blowing.
Oh, wow.
And then from there, it would sort of, for the first couple of years, it kind of hovered around 30,000 unique visitors per month, and then 40,000. And then as we got further along in our journey and we started to look at ways to monetize that, I've got to talk to you maybe off this, but maybe the audience can benefit from this as well. But when you try and start a purpose-driven business, at every term, you're kind of having to question your ethos when you decide you want to monetize. And then there's a friction between your purpose and what you're trying to do and the authenticity around that versus this desire to monetize, because if you can monetize, you can then invest more resources and then hopefully have a greater impact, right? But at what compromise to your values? So this is something that we went back and forth about for a long, long time. So the online store, we thought was the most natural way to sort of monetize the audience. The challenge is we were attracting, here we are, these bloggers based in the capital city of Australia, but meanwhile, 70% of our audience was in North America. So we started this online store with an Australian customer base, an Australian target, because we had bamboo toothbrushes and flossers and zero waste products, which will cost so much to ship overseas. It just wasn't really feasible to both parties. And think about the emissions and everything you have to spend just to send these little products. So we wanted to focus on a local market, but meanwhile, our audience was actually overseas. So we put ourselves in a bit of a compromising situation. But we really wanted to make this happen and turn this side hustle into something more tangible. And then we realized that there are these ad networks. So, as you probably know, but I'll explain it to the audience. But when you develop a website that gets quite a significant amount of traffic, anywhere from about 10,000 unique visitors, and then it scales up to, I think 50,000 for another ad network, and then 100,000 page views for a really premium one, then basically they take care of all of the ad placements in a programmatic way with their algorithms. They match you up with the advertisers, and basically you just collect checks. You just optimize on your website. And it's not completely passive, but it's quite passive in the way that you can monetize a website. And I thought that, websites that did this were not making much money, there's peanuts on the side, but it turns out it can be quite significant. So once we found out that was a possibility, and you can control some of the ad settings in terms of what you can present on your website, which made us feel a little bit better about the approach. But it gave us a goal. So we wanted to get into an ad network called Mediavine, which required 50,000 unique visitors. And that's actually when we started to go in deeper about SEO and being more intentional about the content we're creating. Not just creating content we wanted to, but actually figuring out what people want first. like scientifically understand the demand and then create based on that. And that's when things started to really shift and the traffic went up significantly. And then, you know, we got into Mediavine, I think in 2019, I think we had 60,000 unique, visitors per month. And then from there, like it doubled in the next year to 120. I think at our peak, we reached about 180,000 unique visitors in a month. So, it really started to scale up from there once we figured that out, this SEO component. I'll come back to Fairlinks, the online store that feeds into why we started KindMark. That business didn't go too well, but I'll circle that so we can come back to it later.
Was that when you started bringing ads onto your website? Was that also the starting point when you went full-time working on your website, or was that somewhat related time frame?
Yeah, it was the same time frame. So that year in 2019, when we went full-time, was the same year that we got accepted into Mediavine and were able to start to monetize the website.
Just out of curiosity, how did it change the work and like the time and effort you were able to put in growing your website from having to work and do it on the side to then being able to, well, basically support yourself doing it full-time?
Yeah, I mean, it was incredible because, you know, when you go from working in your breaks at lunchtime and in the evenings, and we were also fulfilling orders for our online store, it sounds like a lot, but at the time it was very exciting. Right? When you have a side hustle that's got momentum, it's a lot more motivating when it's not compared to when it's not doing too well. Right? So, we had a really strong pull to do that. And what was also motivating us was also about a lifestyle, right? This whole idea of, you know, taking 40 hours of your week, and in my case, often 50 hours a week, to a workplace, which was a fantastic job. Apple's amazing, and being in an Apple store, some of the things that they're doing is really incredible. But just having autonomy over your schedule and your time, and where you live as well. Like as a result of doing that, we're able to move cities down to Tasmania in this beautiful nature and background and scenery. And we have plans to move to Europe later on in life because, you know, this affords us the flexibility. That was all a lot of motivation. So as soon as we're able to allocate more time, of course, we're able to increase our volume of content. And because we understood how SEO worked, it's like it just came down to more content equals more traffic equals more influence, more impact, etc.
Nice. Seems like a beautiful connection, like a combination between you were able to live like a more sustainable lifestyle yourself on the one hand side, but then also you were able to create a much bigger impact because you're able to produce more content, and with more content getting more traffic and helping more people at the same time. Now, you already mentioned there were some challenges along the way, and one of those challenges, it sounds like, was your online shop. What happened there? How did that go along?
Well, before we learned SEO, we started this online store again, thinking that we could just sort of leverage our audience from what we built at the Minimalist Vegan. But it turned out to be a lot more challenging than that to sell these products. And, so what we did is because we invested maybe about $10,000 in stock, we were stocking everything in our spare room in the house. And we really wanted this to succeed. So we did what a lot of companies do, and we sought out agencies who could help us with the marketing. And in doing so, we I won't name the website, I'll name the agency, but a very, very popular agency here in Australia who has some, really great results for some companies. We got on a sales call with them and we decided to give it a go. Now, we didn't have a lot of money. So we actually had to go into more debt to get into the contract. So with a lot of these agencies, they work on a retainer basis where you pay them every month and they do a certain amount of work every single month. And some agencies actually require you to sign on for a period of time. It could be 6 months, 12 months. In this case, it was 18 months. So it's an 18-month lock-in contract. Yes, correct.
That's an eternity in internet years.
Exactly right. And their argument, which I can understand, is that, well, the strategies that they're using, particularly around SEO, so they can do paid ads in, Meta or Google or SEO. So those are the kind of core services. And we went with the SEO package because we wanted organic traffic. We didn't want to become dependent on paid media. So, but their positioning is that, well, it takes a long time to get results and to, be patient with the process. So therefore we have this 18-month contract. Which was, I think it was about $2,000 a month. So it was a lot of money, that we had to burn to, get our little business off the ground. Now, because we weren't deeply into SEO, but I had some understanding of it. I had some tools that I was using for the Minimalist Vegan at the time. So I could kind of cross check and understand to a certain level how things were progressing. And, it was just not that they were doing a bad job. It was just that they were reporting on keywords being a phrase that a user types into the Google search. There's a lot of data behind that keyword in terms of how many people are typing that in based on the geographical location in the world, and the difficulty based on the amount of other websites that are on there. But some of these keywords are very obscure and they don't have any demand. And so they're reporting on the really, really obscure keywords that were related to our products that they had success in. But I knew that it was really easy to rank for them because there was basically no one searching for it. So the reporting didn't seem to have a level of integrity. But what really pushed us over the edge was that, you know, you could probably hear my voice. We're very passionate about our values and our ethos and how we communicate that. And so they were putting content together on our website, you know, on category pages and product pages and articles. And it was very generic, right? It's kind of similar to what maybe ChatGPT might produce for us in 2023. It just had no soul. It had no expertise. It had no data. It was really, really generic sort of information that we're paying thousands of dollars for. So that sort of didn't go down too well for us. And then we wanted to get out of the contract. I think we're 4 months in, and it got really dicey there. It was really challenging because we did sign a contract for 18 months. So we effectively had to close down the business to be able to get out of that contract. So it was a bit of a real wake up call, a real aha moment in our entrepreneurial journey about contracts, digital marketing, so many different things, supply chain, all of this stuff. And from that moment, I said, okay, no. I'm going to internalize and bring in and learn so much about SEO and digital marketing so we can apply it to our projects moving forward and not be dependent on agencies based on that experience that we had. So now full circle, we've come around to 2023, and you know, we made the decision to move on from the Minimalist Vegan because we moved our recipe content to another website called Heartful Table. We really wanted to focus on the food part more so than the lifestyle part, which then allowed us to sort of move on from the Minimalist Vegan. So we sold that, and then it opened up my time, and I thought, okay, what's next? And I thought, okay, I wouldn't mind trying getting into the agency world with all these skills I'd picked up from the Minimalist Vegan, and but kind of go back and revisit all of those poor experiences I had. So for example, now when we run an agency, we don't offer long-term contracts. It's just a month to month. You can cancel at any time. It's like Netflix. You can, you know, turn it on and off whenever you want. And it keeps us accountable to, you know, get results for our clients. But on top of that, there's a level of transparency and a level of commitment to the content, right, that's being produced on people's websites and how we go about that and speaking in the voice of our clients. So that's where we are today based on that experience that we had. But I am grateful for it. It was a very costly mistake, but we came out of it, you know, a lot more knowledgeable, you know, and a lot more experience and some battle wounds in this space.
Sounds like a lot of learnings that you had, like from two angles. On the one hand side, you already got like a first grasp of what is SEO, what should work, how could things go, and they really follow, like, integrity has to be like at the forefront of like everything you're doing. And that's also what I'm strongly believing in. Like, if it's not ethically, sustainably full of integrity, which is not doing it. That's like your kind of the starting point. Then you try to kind of offer some more sustainable way with product replacements, it sounded like, to not your core audience from your other website with 70% from North America, but to your local audience to be even more sustainable, which is a big step to be more sustainable as well, to just ship it locally and do with, like, basically help the local audience. Went into an agency that had really high praise. Afterwards, one could question where the high praise comes from, but that's probably a different story. And then you figured out like all of the things that probably should not be done. I would assume you learned so much more about SEO in terms of like, well, it's nice if you rank like in the first position. Google shows you for something that only you will Google because you see if you rank or not, but no one else has a question that this article would provide an answer to. And so many more things about like the contracts and everything else, that basically the learning of positive from your website, the negative from the agency you work together. enabled you in some way to like put it all together as like, what do you want to offer with KindMark? As like, what are the good things you want to offer? But then also saying like, with the long-term contract, what are the things that you do not want your clients to go through? Because, from a client perspective, that just doesn't make sense.
Absolutely. It's all of it together. And, but that's what I love about, business and entrepreneurship. It's just, we don't have children. We've chosen not to have children. That might change in the future, but I feel like children and business, this fast track your personal development in ways that, it's incomprehensible. It just puts you in the most uncomfortable situations where you have to figure it out. And, and university, Bachelor of Commerce and business at school, it just couldn't move this fast. It couldn't give you these experiences. And knowing that it's like every time you take a step forward in any new venture, you now know it. Actually, as you're doing it, you feel it, right? Like you've got this podcast and you just did it. You just set up your studio, you set up the market, you had a concept of who you wanted to interview, the angles, and you just did it knowing that, halfway through this project, you're just going to acquire all these new skills. And who knows where the show is going to go, but now you have these skills. And how are you going to leverage that in the future? And it just keeps compounding and compounding and compounding.
And I also believe so much in the long-term vision that sometimes like the short-term views, they are nice to have, but then over a long period of time, that's not what necessarily matters the most. For example, you had some really good luck that you built up an audience and had like 10,000 pages already like in the first month, like kind of as off the gate. For me, I think it took like 8, 7, 5. So it took many months until I had like the first 1,000 pages, like in a month with the website. But then I already knew this and I was like, okay, the content is better. People are searching for this. So in the long run, it just has to win. And it's similar with the podcast now. We just started it super recently. But I know in the long term, this is something that would be super helpful for people. And if it's not just like for me about like learning about all the journeys, all the great stories, which I'm super grateful for, but then also being able to share the great stories from you and all the other guests, which is like super, super nice connection. And I know in the long run, if I just keep at it, or if we keep at it, there's just no way to not grow at least a tiny bit every single time.
Yes, as hard as it is to look at like, it's hard, isn't it? In business and in content, you've got so many numbers staring at you all the time. I mean, social media is the worst for this, right? It's just, we're looking external validation for all of our hard work or what we posted. And, but I think what you said is that if we can look past just the numbers and, okay, did things go up by this percentage or go down? Where's my audience? Where's my leads coming from? Where's my money? All of that stuff. And just go, okay, what am I learning? What am I gaining? What relationships am I building? What impact am I making? To one person. We talk about all these views like they're not individuals. These are human beings. And when you put that into perspective, if you put 10,000 people in a room, that's like a lot of people, right? But sometimes you just think about these numbers and you can water it down or make it seem like it's insignificant. So I think, that practice of feeling and learning and growing through every step of this journey is absolutely key. Otherwise, you can drive yourself crazy. You really can. And you can never feel like you're progressing as much as you want to.
Yeah. And sometimes also the numbers, they don't reflect the full story. Because some articles or some content you put out could be super impactful even for like a small amount of people. Like if just 1% acts, that makes a big difference. Versus some other articles are just nice to have, but they bring in the traffic. So that's also why your choice also of KindMark to basically help produce more sustainable content, help like organizations become viewed in a sustainable, ethical way. I think that's so important as well. To make this transition back as well to you, in a sense of how did you then go ahead and with all the experience before, knowing that you wanted to help other creators with kind of an agency-based model, how did you go ahead and make the first step to get it started and off the ground? Yeah,
well, I think this time round, so the idea sort of started to pick up steam around November 2022, so last year. And in that time, what I did is I actually consumed a lot of courses because whilst I had the skills for SEO, I only had skills for parts of SEO, right? Because like SEO is sort of divided into 3 core buckets. And that's on-page SEO, which is, like your keyword research and the media that you put on your pages to communicate to Google what that page is about.
Basically, whatever a viewer sees when they come to your website.
Whatever your viewer sees, on the page when they come to your website, is also you're communicating that to the algorithms as well. So that's all the on-page stuff. And as content creators and bloggers, that's what we're kind of used to, that part. Then the other part is your technical SEO. So this is ensuring that your website is loading quickly, is passing a lot of Google's set page speed scores and systems. It's ensuring that Google can find all your pages and discover your pages, and it's being able to be crawled. It's making sure that it's mobile friendly, it's not broken, it's indexed, all of this stuff, right? So there's a technical component to it. And my experience in that is not great, because the technical component in SEO as a blogger is just really around page speed and things like that. But we're not being exposed to these websites which are built 10 years ago of just pure HTML and CSS and no CMS. And we have to sort of figure out what to do. And then, okay, that's WordPress, and then there's Shopify, and then there's Squarespace. And, so there's all these technical components to it, which is quite overwhelming unless you specialize in the field. And then the third bucket, which is a bucket that we neglected initially, is being able to attract and earn links from other websites around the internet, because Google, it's like developed like a citation system like you would in the library, right? If you read a credible textbook, you've got references from professors and all of these other sources, which makes what you're reading more credible. So Google's taken that same concept and applied it to the internet, and the currency is links. And these links that pass on throughout the whole internet, which are now has become a game in itself, has got some ethical concerns in itself, and a lot of people are buying and exchanging links because they know how valuable it is. So I realized that I had to learn a lot more about SEO, but I also had to learn more about the agency world and this model, because now knowing business, it's like, profit is oxygen. It's like, you can go out there and spend all this money on stock, but not have a plan for how you're going to generate the revenue. And it just doesn't add up. You're looking at your accounting and nothing's adding up. So I knew this because of the experiences and all the failures that I had in business, that the mathematics had to work. And I also wanted to go into a business where it just wasn't dependent on me. Right. It was just, being the sole content creator, my wife and I just standing on tables, taking food photography, doing videos, recording podcasts in basements and writing in cafes. It's, that's what I thought I wanted, but it's also comes with a lot of pressure, looking around and just thinking it's all on me. If I don't wake up today and create, then we're not moving forward. So I definitely wanted to have a system in place where we can bring other people on to help out. And then that's when I went deep into systems and processes. Even before we launched, I used Notion as a project management tool. So we developed our standard operating procedures using a lot of Loom videos, a lot of demonstrations, things like that. So I had to take in a lot of information rather than stitch it together from the internet on YouTube and articles. I just got some courses to save some time and then apply those learnings as quickly as possible for launch. So by the time we launched in January, we had a pretty strong foundation in terms of like a client portal. So when a client comes on board, they're kind of empowered to see exactly where all their content is up to, all the link building activities that we're doing, all the reporting, everything is there. So they have autonomy and control and collaboration. And then it just sets the tone for the whole campaign. So all that was left to do was to find the clients. So, quite similar to the Minimalist Vegan, there was a bit more preparation to come out the gates. And it certainly helped. Yes.
Yep. So it sounds like you were able to take on all your experience, like from what would be the most helpful for your clients, plus in addition took more courses and like save your clients like all the hours that you took and all the money that you spent in courses to distill all the experience and add it to what you had before. And this is kind of like the package or like your service offering for the clients. And at the same time, you had to learn, okay, how does the business operations of an agency model work as well, to get it all started and put these things together. One, for you to create the business that you want, that is sustainable for you, where you can operate in a way that it's not everything dependent on you, but then also offering the clients what, well, basically would be most helpful for them.
Exactly.
Let's just go the next step. Let's just say I was a client, or some people are listening and are interested in the service that you offer. What would be the best next step for me to basically get into contact with you, get in touch and see how we could work together?
Yeah, well, look, the first thing is, and luckily if you're listening to this, you probably have the same ethos as us. But the first thing is that we work with purpose-driven businesses. What does that mean? Is this a buzzword or whatever? Well, the first thing is that profit is important, but your values are just as important, right? So it doesn't matter what your cause is, it's just that you're leading with that. That's the first thing, because there's lots of businesses out there. There's lots of people that I know that want our help or whatever, but it just might not be the best fit, energetically from that standpoint. So I am very upfront about that first. The next thing is, if you're still interested, is visiting our website, so kindmark.co. And then from there, you can book like a free discovery call for 30 minutes just to explain your situation. What I like to do from there is actually just review your website and send you a Loom video, normally about 10 to 15 minutes, with just some findings that we have that will formulate a bit of a strategy, moving forward for what we can do. So I think that's the first step, is just having a chat and just seeing if SEO is actually a good and viable strategy for your business, because SEO is not suitable for every business. Again, it comes down to, who your audience is, who your customers are, what region. Is it a global audience? Is it a national audience, or is it a statewide audience? And then really how much demand is there for that from a search perspective. So once we understand those things, then, we've got some packages on the website, very transparent pricing. But to make sense of all of it, we'd need to have a chat first, just to figure out what would be the best way to use those marketing dollars so you get the best return on investment.
Beautiful. I love that first criteria, like, is it a purpose-driven business or not? That's when I receive so many requests, like, every single day coming into my inbox. And that's also the first criteria. I don't even bother reading like the whole text most of the time if it's not purpose-driven. A lot of times, like, people are like, hey, can I pay you this amount to just get a link? It's like, nope, not interested. So I really love that distinction there as well.
Yeah.
Now, before we go into the next step, into kind of your personal learnings and what you want to share with our audience as well, is there anything we forgot about talking when it comes to KindMark or your journey that you would like to share with us?
No, look, I think, as someone who really loves SEO, I find that, quite often marketers, and I suppose I'm a marketer now, as horrendous as that sounds to me, is that, you get 5 marketers in a room with all these different skill sets, and they kind of all have to sort of defend their methodology, right? Mm-hmm. So right now, TikTok is really, really hot at the moment, and you can explode on TikTok with so many different products and verticals, especially with the organic reach you can get from creating content. And the same thing for LinkedIn if you're in a B2B space, or paid advertising. If you really master what we call performance marketing, it's just science, it's just copywriting and science, and you pay this amount of money and then you get this much back. And then it goes on and on, PR. And, so I think my argument for SEO, is because we're in a different time at the moment where we're able to discover brands and content in so many different ways. Our podcast player, Amazon KDP store, YouTube algorithm. And it makes me wonder, even to myself, like, who is still Googling stuff? But the data is still showing that, keywords and demands, new keywords and are coming onto the, onto the world every second of every day. And the demand continues to grow for so many of these topics. Yes, they might have a flash in the pan, and sustainability, was really zero waste movement in 2015 was like this, and then it flattened and went down a bit, and then it's a little bit up again. And then it's like, are we using zero waste anymore? Or are we talking about low waste? Or, like, these things change. But what still blows my mind is that people are going to Google beyond just looking for their local bakery or cafe, beyond just, trying to prove their spouse wrong in an argument. And they're still trying to find information, products and services. And, I think that's really powerful, because if you can meet them exactly where they are, then what better lead, audience, clients, potential customer for your business, because they're looking for exactly for what you have. And, so I just wanted to make that clear, that we're not interrupting people here on their feeds. We're giving them exactly what they want. And I think that's why search marketing is so powerful, and that's why I'm so passionate about it.
No, I love that point as well. It's kind of all the other social platforms, they have an app open and you need to interrupt them with something. It's like, oh, now check out my post, check out my video, check out what I have. Versus social with SEO, they come to you. They Google for something, they search for something anywhere else, and they want an answer. And if you happen to have the answer that they see, then they're just happy if it's a good answer.
Yes. I think the only thing that's changed with that is that You know, I remember back in, 2008, I'd go home. Like I'd literally be excited to go home to get on my computer and read basketball articles on my computer. Right? That used to be a way I consume content. And then, you know, I bump into a 19-year-old now and I tell them about my businesses and I'd give them the website and they just gloss over. They're like, oh, what's your Instagram? What's your TikTok? It's like I'm not even communicating at the same level. So it's the content's there. It exists in the same way, but it's the internet, which is like what we refer to as Google, is shifted in that we're not just hanging out there like we used to. By the time we Google something, there's a level of urgency. We want that information. We want that product. We want to find it and we want to get out. Whilst back in the day, we used to hang out. You know, there used to be more blog comments. There used to be more community in that. And I think that's all changed. So, anyway, I sound like a dinosaur at this point. So,
no, but that's just the way how the industry changes, no?
Yes.
But it's also a beautiful connection to the next part. When it comes to your personal life, like since you firstly started with the vegan blog, went into everything else that led up then to starting KindMark. How would you say has that influenced your personal life? And how did you change anything there?
I think it goes back to what I was talking about with all of the challenges that come with these things. I think business is the ultimate self-development tool. From impact for me, it's all about growing confidence in myself to be able to figure things out. You know, and I think that's what the greatest impact of all of these projects have been, is that you set out to try and have an impact on the world, but then you realize that still I've been vegan for almost 9 years. And, it started off being very passionate about that cause, but now I've taken a step back a lot. And, now it's about, okay, rather than just having a product, service, content that you support because of your values, you're supporting it because it's objectively just as good, if not better, than the alternative. And it just so happens to align with your values. And to me, that means that the impact of this journey has taught me that whatever it is you're creating needs to hold up. And you really need to challenge yourself as a creator, as an inventor, whatever your thing is, that you can't just rely on the cause as being a differentiator. Yes. You still need to compete in the arena of whatever that thing is. And that's what the market will teach you. They don't care. Yes. Unfortunately, they don't care so much about your ethos. The 5% audience that you and I are part of do. You're going to find them. They're going to find you because they have to. Yeah. You know, I have to go buy shoes. You know, the stress I go through to buy shoes. You know, like where I go, where it's coming from, what glue. I'm like, on support, asking the most obscure questions. People like us are going to find those brands. But what are we doing this for? We're trying to shift the demand of ethical, sustainable products and services in the marketplace. Yes. So we have to appeal to more people. And the only way we can do that is by the quality or the whatever it is that we're delivering. And that to me has been the biggest impact and lesson through all of this.
Nice. Yeah, basically helping make a systemic change by just influencing enough people, make a small change in their lifestyle so that they can in the end vote with their dollars, and overall we make a big impact.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Now, when it comes to basically one tip for our audience, how we can become more impactful, what would be your number one tip for us?
One. Okay. Look, yes. I think back to my previous point, and I hope if you're listening to this, even if it's something small on the side, I think you have such a great opportunity to make an impact in the world through business. You know, I really do think even if it's a self-published book on whatever your cause is, you know, interviewing people, whether it's like a sustainable dog treat that you can develop on the side, whether it's just something like that. Because the thing about being this type of consumer is that it can get very existential and you can get into this mindset of reduction. But at the end of the day, it's not practical, right? So, unless I'm going to live in the middle of nowhere, using this resources straight off the land, even then I'm going to have some sort of impact on something around me. The moment I was, I was brought into this world, I was having some sort of a negative impact, right? So take that away and people still want convenience. They want quality. They, want things that entertain them. So I think as people who are trying to create an impact, I think we can use our creativity to meet customers where they are. And I think that to me is really exciting. You know, it could just be picking up your phone and making some TikToks. It could be, you know, whatever it is, but doing something on the side proactively. And I think business is a great vehicle. I think has the ability to sort of, you know, provide more options, right? More supply in a more seamless way. And I think over time, we can't stop the convenience machine, right? We can't stop people's desires to just want what they want, but we can influence their choices, and, you know, and they need to have choices. So that'll be my takeaway. It's in as little project as you want, or if you get together with other people, you can take on a bigger project. I think we need more impactful, purpose-led businesses.
Beautiful. What a beautiful way to end the conversation. Well, thanks so much, Michael, for sharing your journey and your story. And all the best with KindMark as well on that new episode of your life.
Thank you so much.
And to everyone else, thanks so much for joining us as well today, and stay impactful.